Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'd like to call this council meeting to order. Joining me in the chambers are the CAO, Ms. Thompson, City Clerk, Ms. Defoe, and the Deputy Clerk, Mr. Bantock. Regrets today from Mayor Matheson and Councillor Ingram. If I could ask us all just to have a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, the meeting is yours.
For you, Deputy Mayor Ritzma, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof.
Seeing none.
Item 3 is adoption of the minutes, and there is a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of council dated June 28th be adopted as printed.
Moved by Councillor Vasilako, second by Councillor Beatty. All in favor? And that's unanimous.
Item 4 is adoption of the addendum, and there is no addendum to be adopted. So moving on to item 5, report of the Committee of the Whole in camera session. Item 5.1, there was no Committee of the Whole in camera session held just before today's meeting. Moving to item 6, hearings of deputations and presentations, and there are none scheduled. Item 7 is orders of the day, and item 7.1 is correspondence for a resignation from Communities in Bloom, and there is a motion that the resignation of George Kierstead from the Communities in Bloom Advisory Committee be accepted.
That's moved by Councillor Beatty, seconded by Councillor Henderson. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Henderson, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that we're very sorry to hear George had to resign and that he will be missed off the committee.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank him for all his hard work.
Thank you.
So through you, Deputy Mayor Ritzma, item 8, business for which previous notice has been given. There is none scheduled. So moving to item 9, reports of the standing committees. Item 9.1 is the report of the Planning and Heritage Committee, and there's one item listed for consideration, and that is item 9.1.1, Planning Report Zone Change Amendment Application Z02-21 for 55 to 65 Lauren Avenue East.
And that's moved by Councillor Bunting, second by Councillor Vasilakos. Questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed of any? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Item 9.2 is report of the Social Services Committee, and there are 3 items listed for consideration as follows. Item 9.2.1 is the Community Income Tax Clinic. Item 9.2.2 is the Centralized Intake Implementation. And item 9.2.3 is the Electronic Document Management Implementation.
And that's moved by Councillor Henderson, second by Councillor Burbach. Any comments? Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed if any? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Item 9.3 is report of the Community Services Committee, and there are 2 items listed as follows. Item 9.3.1 is the bus shelter advertising agreement with Pattison, and item 9.3.2 is the municipal partnership program.
Councillor Beatty will move, second by Councillor Clifford. Discussion, Councillor 7.
Could we take 9.3.2 separately, please?
Yes, we can. So we are have moved in second and 9.3.1. All in favor? Opposed if any? And that's unanimous. Moving on to 9.3.2. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed if any? 1 opposed, and that's carried. Thank you.
Item 9.4 is report of the Finance and Labor Relations Committee, and there is 1 item listed, and that's item 9.4.1, Bill 218, supporting Ontario's Recovery and Municipal Elections Act 2020 update.
And that's moved by Councillor Gaffney, second by Councillor Clifford. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Burbach, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to note that it's disappointing to see that the province is taking away the ability for municipalities to use different forms of election. It seems like we were just making some progress and now they've rolled that back, which is really unfortunate. So I just wanted to note that not disagreement with that particular part of this bill.
Thank you, Councillor Verbeck. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? One opposed, and that's carried.
Item 10 is notice of intent, and there's none scheduled. So moving to item 11, reading of the bylaws. There are 3 bylaws listed for consideration as follows. Item 11.1 is to amend zoning bylaw 201-2000 with respect to zone change application Z02-21 for a portion of 55 to 65 Lord Avenue East. Item 11.2 is an agreement with Patterson Outdoor Advertising for advertising on bus shelters. And item 11.3 is an encroachment agreement for 23, 27 to 31 Avon Street. And these bylaws can be taken collectively upon unanimous vote of council present.
A mover to take those collectively, Councillor Vasilakos and Councillor Henderson. Comments? Councillor Gaffney.
Mr. Chair, is it possible to take 11.3 separately?
Yes, we can. Any other comments? So we have 11.1, 11.2, and 11.3 moved and seconded, and we will, without any further discussion, if I don't see any, we will vote on 11.1 and 11.2. All in favor? Opposed, if any? I see none, and those are carried. Moving on to 11.3. That's been moved and seconded. Any questions or, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk.
So through you, Deputy Mayor, so it's my understanding we took 11.1 to 2 collectively. Now we will move on to first and second, and then third final, and then we'll proceed to 11.3, first, second, and then third final.
Thank you so much. So we're moving a motion then to move and second, first and second reading of 11.1 and 11.2. Councillor Seven and Councillor Bunting will first move that for first and second time. All in favor? And that's unanimous. And a motion for the third and final. Councillor Gaffney and Councillor Burback, all in favor? And that's unanimous. We're moving on to 11.3 and a mover to move it the first and second time. Councillor Henderson and Councillor Bunting. Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? One opposed. 2 opposed. Thank you. 2 opposed, and that's carried. So the third and final mover, Councillor Clifford and Councillor Seven. All in favor? Opposed, if any? 2 opposed, and that's carried. Thank you.
Moving on to item 12, consent agenda. Are there any consent agenda items to be considered by council?
Councillor Clifford.
I would ask for council support of CA 2021-097, the resolution from the town of Cochrane requesting the federal government include prostate cancer screening into the national health care program.
Thank you, Councillor Clifford, and Councillor Beattie will second that. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's unanimous. Any further items from the consent agenda? Seeing none.
Item 13 is new business. Are there any new business items?
Thank you. None. None.
And through you, Deputy Mayor Ritzma, item 14 is adjournment to standing committees, and the order is Finance and Labor Relations, followed by Infrastructure, Transportation, and Safety Committee.
The motion to adjourn, and that's Councillor Henderson, and second by Councillor Vasilakos. All in favor? Thank you. And Councillor Gaffney, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will call to order Finance and Labor Relations Committee meeting. Item 2, disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Seeing none. Item 3, subcommittee meetings. Meeting minutes are attached. Item 4, delegations, 4.1. Delegation by Naba. Is he with us tonight, Madam Clerk, this afternoon?
Through the chair, yes, he is.
Okay, good. Then I will ask for a motion to hear from our delegation, Councillor Seven and Councillor Burback. All those in favor? Thank you very much. If Nava would like to join our conversation here and make his presentation, please.
So the chair, we are just getting him connected now.
Yep. Thank you.
Hi,
Can you hear
thank
us,
you,
Nava?
everyone. Yeah, I could hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. And thank you, everyone. Once again, my request is to cancel the penalty of $1,919.28. Recently, I have paid the full taxes in full, and as you all know, my business is significantly suffering from the pandemic, and I kindly request to cancel the penalty. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for our delegation? Okay, see none, we will move on to 5.1. There was a recommendation made by subcommittee, but we can entertain any recommendation Councillor would like to make. Councillor Clifford?
I will move the subcommittee's recommendation.
Councillor Clifford and Councillor Bunting. Any questions or discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Thank you. That's carried. Item 6, Director, or Report of the Director of Infrastructure and Development Services, 6.1, Purchasing Policy Exemption Request for the Queen Street Trunk Storm Sewer Project. If the director is there, did you want to make any comment? Taylor?
Sure, yeah, thank you through the chair. Essentially, I'm just putting this report forward to council just to give the heads up of the magnitude of the contracted services we're looking to engage Wood Consulting with. In essence, this project is very large and requires a lot of resources to ensure that it's achieved effectively. And so we're looking to engage Wood for the contract administration and inspection services. Effectively, this ensures a quicker response if issues were to happen, but also they have a significant depth of experts, whether it be geotechnical, hydrogeotechnical, structural, civil, and tunneling experts. So we really need them to ensure this project goes well.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone wish to move the subcommittee recommendation? Councillor Bunting and Councillor Vasilakos. Any other questions or discussion? Councillor Seven.
Thank you. I have, I guess, just questions for Mr. Krinklaw. I guess my initial reaction is that I'm not really comfortable with no comparable prices for similar services. I guess I'm just wondering, the big question is why there was no RFP issued for this, and I'm just wondering, you know, in my mind, surely another firm could be brought up to speed to do this. I'm just wondering if you could maybe explain that a little more.
Yes, absolutely. Through the chair. The main benefit from retaining Wood Contracting is they've been involved from the very beginning, and this is actually their design. So if there are issues that come up to it, it's easier to hold them accountable for the design aspects because they have no one else to refer to for themselves. In terms of comparable prices, they did provide us with a price sheet of the individuals' charge out rates, which are comparable competitively. And we've had discussions about if we can modify that a bit to account for the large scale of this project.
Thank you. And if I could follow up, is this something that is common for bigger projects that we would directly hire sort of the firm that is responsible from the beginning sort of thing?
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, it is. As I mentioned before, it is their design and no one knows their design better than the individual who actually put it forward. So in larger scale projects like this one, where there's so many moving pieces and so many components being involved, it helps having those individuals who actually did the design themselves.
Thank you, Taylor. Councillor Seven.
I did have one more question. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm just wondering about how it says it accounts for 3% of the budgeted amount of the project. Is that part of like the anticipated expenses, or is that something that might be like additional at the end, or was this something that was part of the original budgeted amount?
Yeah, so the chair, no, that percentage is included there just to give you a scale. I know the nearly $500,000 seems quite large, but the project itself is quite large. So it's just to give you an idea of how that compares. We will be working with the consultant. If there are opportunities to have savings or reduce hours, we will push for that, but we can't really know that until the project's actually underway.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, it's not exactly, it's related, but I was going to ask our director, if the price comes in exceedingly high on this Queen Street, how would we approach it with this contract we have here? Is it only if the contract goes through?
Yes, through the chair. If we happen to have prices that are higher than what we budgeted, we would look to actually cancel the project and consider doing it another year. This agreement would only be effectively agreed to upon the successful award of that contract.
Thank you, Taylor. Any other questions or comments? Then I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that carries. Item 7. Report of the Manager of Financial Services, 7.1. 2020 Treasurer Statements for Development Charge and Cash in lieu of Parkland Reserve Funds. Did anybody want to make the subcommittee recommendations? Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Vasilakos. Any report from the manager?
I believe Ms. Partridge is on the line or on the meeting.
Yeah, just this report is required under the Development Charges Act, and it basically gives the opening balance for 2020, all the inputs and outputs out of the funds, and then the balance at the end of 2020, which is about $12.5 million.
Okay, very good. Any questions or comments? Councilor Burback.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a question about the reserve, the cash in lieu of Parkland Reserve Fund. Do we have a policy or a usual set of practices how that money is then spent? I just wasn't familiar with that fund.
That I'm not sure of. I would have to find that out and get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Would the Director of Community Services might have some input on that question?
Through the chair, I don't believe we have a specific policy, but in all cases, we go to council first before money is spent from that fund.
Okay,
you.
thank you. Does that help, Councilor Burbach?
Yes, yeah, it would be interesting to think about developing a policy or at least a set of recommendations as to how that might be used. Rather than just sort of as a project comes on, then we decide to spend it, or that, you know, maybe looking at some possible goals of projects that are upcoming so that we can think about some of those things and maybe put some parameters around it. I think it's a good idea for spending that kind of money, especially. We want to make sure that we're spending it on projects that are going to be, that are planned well in advance and not sort of a last minute thing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Then I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just going back to the conversation with respect to a policy, staff would seek a direction of this committee to prepare a draft report for your consideration with respect to the reserve fund.
I would make that motion.
Councilor Burbach, and I see Councilor Henderson's hand is up. Is that to second the motion? Okay. Any
I have
questions?
a question too.
Oh, okay, thank you, Councilor Henderson. Go ahead.
Do you, I don't have the report up right now in front of me, and I can't remember if it was in the report or not, but when was the last time we actually used that, any balance out of there? Because my understanding is that money is if somebody is developing land and they are taking, let's see, no, not trees, but it's like the McCarthy place out there. Each development has to give, what is it, 5% towards parkland, and that's put into a fund, or the land is given to us. Have I got that correct? And I was curious when the last time we actually used that.
I will defer to either the chair of community services or the director of community services to answer that question.
Through the chair, Councillor Henderson is correct in developers need to provide either 5% in lieu of parkland. So if there's parkland to be given, then that is in lieu of the 5%. And off the top of my head, I can't remember the last time we allocated funds from that trust fund.
Okay, thanks.
Optimist Park, maybe?
I just wanted to declare that it's got nothing to do with if somebody takes down trees on their property and they have to either buy new trees and plant them, or they give cash in lieu of and it's held in reserve and the city plants trees somewhere. That's a different type of fund, right?
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave. Any other questions? I saw Councilor Clifford's hand up, or Councilor Vasilakos.
I was just going to ask if we have a policy, but I think the question's been answered by a director. Like, has it been accumulating without any spending? I mean, that sounds a bit strange. It's a reserve. We're not, or like, I'm just curious how we've handled it in the past. But if we haven't spent it in the last while, I guess that's the answer.
Through the chair, we have used some of those funds. For example, we purchased the property at the Packham soccer field that we used at Phelps Design, I believe, owned it, and they were going to use it for something else. So then we did purchase that land, and that money did come from the Parkland Trust. There are some guidelines that go around how we use the Parkland Trust, but there's no policy directly on how we spend it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Vasilakos.
I was just going to say that this goes back to the motion that we had at the last meeting around reserves and how we use them. Because to me, it's important to have a policy around how you use a reserve, but then I think it's just as important to overlay that policy on larger either other recreation master plans or transportation master plans or whatever master planning process goes, is matches with those reserve funds, so that we're not just having a policy around how we spend that money. We have a long-term plan on how we're going to roll out those services. And I think this goes back to also that conversation, we linking it together with the asset management plan. At some point, we're going to have to look at not just our new assets and how we maintain them and plan for replacement, but looking at some of the existing assets we have and how we either maintain them or divest from them. And so I think I like the idea of having a policy for this particular reserve, but I think this links back into a larger discussion around policy for each of the reserves and long-term asset management. So that's just my comment.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Then I think I'm in a position to call the question. Is that right, Madam Clerk?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. It has been moved by Councillor Burbach and seconded by Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. I'm not sure what Councillor Bunting just did there. I'm not sure if he supported or he opposed that.
My apologies. I was just a bit late getting my hand up. I'm sorry.
Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, item 7.2. Proposed 2022 budget schedule and process. There's been a subcommittee recommendation. Does anyone wish to move that? Councillor Clifford, seconded by Councillor Bunting. Any discussions or questions? Councillor Vasilakos.
I know we talked about this when our schedule came out, just for the council schedule, but having meetings during the workday, including 3:30, does put those members who have jobs that require them to be present for that. It does put them at a distinct disadvantage, but it also does so in the context of near the end of the year not having vacation time or things like that to take to do this. So while I can see maybe scheduling one of these meetings during the usual workday, I can foresee, I don't know why we don't at least try to have one or two of these meetings in the evening. One, because it allows participation for those members that maybe aren't available during the day, and two, that it allows some participation possibly from members of the public who aren't available during the day to attend or to look at the proceedings. And I'm looking forward also into the next election cycle. If we have members of the public who are hoping to run for council, but also have, day jobs, which is usually what we do, then we're narrowing the field of people that are available if we continually have meetings that fall during the workday. And so I would really like to see us at least either the November 24th or November 30th meeting, have it as an evening meeting to accommodate some of those other considerations.
Are you making a friendly amendment?
I would like to make a friendly amendment that the November 24th meeting be an evening meeting, preferably starting after 5:30.
Okay. Are the mover and seconder okay with that?
I'm fine.
I see nodding heads. Councillor Seven, I saw your hand there.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. So I definitely agree with Councillor Vasilakos. I was actually, I would go a step further, and I was hoping that we would be able to change it, all of the 3:31s to, a 5:30. Just for Councillor Vasilakos spoke very in depth and very well about it, so I won't try and repeat that. But I definitely agree, and I would like to see all of the evening sessions. I know speaking just for myself, I know that those would be difficult for me, but you know, any improvement is good. So I would prefer all of the 3:30s moved to 5:30, but we'll see what the committee decides. Oh, and sorry, if I could add before I do want to comment. I don't know if we can take the parts of this motion separately. I just wanted to comment also on the other parts. So maybe we could take the schedule piece first, and then the percentage tax increase afterwards.
I would ask the clerk if that's possible.
So through the chair, yes, you can split the motion at this time. We just respectfully request direction on what portion is to be voted on now and which portion is to be held for consideration afterwards.
Okay. Okay, I don't know exactly what to do with, do we want to reschedule one meeting or 3 meetings? We have to take in consideration staff availability also when these meetings are being scheduled. So I don't know if I want to put staff in a position to change all 3 on our say so, but I see Bonnie is emphatically asking the heard. So go
Well,
ahead.
I know Danielle's not here, but I know Tuesdays are bad for her. So if November 30th could be changed to December 1st or December 2nd, that would be better. I know for her. And I just feel at budget time, it's very important that we're all at the meeting.
Okay, so we've added another layer of discussion here. Councillor Vasilakos, I saw your hand up too.
Being very respectful of staff's time though, but most of our meetings in the past, in all of the years leading up to COVID, we did have evening meetings. And I do foresee by around November or December, I'm suspecting we may have some in-person meetings as well. But in my mind, it worked really. So I threw out one evening meeting just because I thought there was maybe some opposition from council to going to the evening meetings. But I certainly would be, to me, evenings would be preferable just because it can include more councillors and more of the public. And I think that helps.
So would a more accurate, friendly amendment be asking staff to see what they can do about scheduling all these, except the all-day meeting in the evening hours? Is that would that be a more accurate request?
If the mover and the seconder were amenable to that, yes.
Yes, of course. Is that okay with Councillor Clifford and Councillor Bunting?
I was going to ask about the Tuesday also, if there's a problem. Are we including helping Councillor Ingram on the Tuesday one also in that motion?
I would like that we have direct discussions with Councillor Ingram. We shouldn't, I don't think we should be making that kind of decision on her behalf without hearing from her directly. And if we come back in 2 weeks and we have to make a further minor adjustment to our scheduling, I suspect things will still work out. You'll still get your holiday, Councillor Clifford.
Thank you. I was worried about that.
Councillor Beatty.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be Captain Obvious here. We'll never be able to make all 11 people happy all the time, and no matter how hard we try, whether we were at nights or these proposed shift to a daytime, we've always had council members who weren't able to attend even in evening meetings. It's just the nature of the beast of having 11 people. So whether we choose to change it to a late afternoon, whether we keep it now, in my opinion, it really doesn't matter. It's just whether how many maximum people can we get in the room at one time. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Thank you. Well, we have a motion on, we have a separated motion in front of us, which is the separation from the tax increase proposal. Is that right, Madam Clerk?
So through the chair, it is my understanding at this time that the only portion to be separated is the section that says that staff be directed to prepare a budget with a maximum of 2 to 3% tax increase. And I believe the remainder of the motion would be considered now, with the amendment that the November 24th, November 30th, and December 9th dates be held in the evening,
if possible.
if possible.
Okay. Councillor Seven.
Thank you. Can I just ask a point of clarification for the final part of the motion? Is this something, are we to provide staff with specifics now or in the future prior to the budget meetings? And is this to be done as motions or as sort of individual correspondence to staff? I just was unsure.
I don't know exactly how to respond to that. Would the deputy mayor or the most recent chair of finance or the clerk have, or Ms. Thompson? I see Councillor Clifford's hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I am happy to have the 24th, the 30th, and the 9th at 5:30. It is common to have it at that time for people in the public too, quite frankly. So I'm pleased with that. And I think it would work if we had it at 5:30 for those 3 times.
Yes, thank you. To cut back on some of the confusion here, I wonder if I could ask Councillor Seven to preserve that question until after we deal with the rest of this motion.
Sorry, through the chair, if I could, we're taking it all together. Am I correct that we're taking the scheduling part and the final part of the motion together? That was the reason I had asked for.
No, we are not. It's going to be a separate item. The tax increase.
Okay, so.
So if there's nothing else on the original motion, I see the clerk wants my attention.
Through the chair, if I could just clarify, is the intent to take everything except for the statement that says that staff be directed to prepare a budget with a maximum 2 to 3% tax increase? Or is the intent to take that sentence and then the final and that council provides direction, staff with any specific capital projects separately? If the intent is to only take the section about the tax increase, then perhaps an answer on whether staff would like direction now would be helpful.
So, yeah, okay. So as part of like if the recommendation is to pass this this item as it stands with initial minor variation on the schedule, I guess this is the time to have the discussion on what percentage we want to propose to staff.
So through the chair, sorry, my apologies. To clarify, so with respect to the last part of the motion that says, and that council provides staff with any specific capital projects, changes in service levels, or activities to advance the approved strategic priority goals they wish to be considered for the 2022 fiscal year.
Yes.
I believe staff would like that direction now or at council. I will defer to the Chief Administrative Officer as the Manager of Financial Services is not on the line, just to clarify if that is incorrect first.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so through you, Councillor Gaffney. So with respect to the 2022 pre-budget meeting, we would look to schedule a separate meeting with this committee towards the end of August to get that direction from council. And this would be the opportunity for council to provide input with respect to strategic priorities, particular projects, and that we have that information from you as soon as possible in August so that directors can then finalize their budgets for submissions. So that is the intent of that 2022 pre-budget meeting. And is that we would plan on scheduling it for sometime in August, and we would be reaching out to members of council and directors on scheduling that.
Okay. That sounds good. Councillor Burback.
Yeah, just for clarification, so any item that's already been referred to the 2022 budget, that remains on the list. So we're just talking about additional items that we may want to see. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So provided that council gave direction and passed a resolution referring something to the 2022 budget, those items have been captured and are on the list. And anything else that requires a specific direction resolution of council referring it to the budget process. And then it will be up to council as part of the budget deliberations to determine what can and cannot be included in the budget this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vasilakos.
This is probably already, if we could have a list of those referrals for the pre-budget meeting, maybe ahead of time, that would really help sort of formulate any new or change of level or things like that in our minds. It would be nice to get a recap. It's been a long year.
Good suggestion, Councillor.
I was just going to wait. I want it clear, right? Like, would council provide staff with any direction? That's a council thing that we all sort of agree on and discuss and debate before it goes. Like, I would hate to have staff start getting emails from or communication from individual council members on what they'd like to see. But it is something we all will talk about at whenever that pre-budget meeting is. Good. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think Councillor 7, if I'm not wrong, is looking maybe to make a friendly amendment on the percentages.
Thank you. I just was looking for a 2 to 2.5% as a change. Ideally I'd like 2, but I think some flexibility would be nice, and that was what I was looking for.
And is that an endorsement from your child as well on that?
It's inconclusive.
Well, I'd be more than happy to offer that amendment to the mover and the seconder. Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, I'd like to keep it at 1%, quite frankly. But the reality is, we've referred a lot of things to. We've already referred to a lot of things that we just talked about previously. So if we can keep it under 3, I would be happy. Like, obviously you can aim for whatever you want, but the reality is we've got pay increases. We've got the unions that are going to ask for a certain amount. So I just think when we talked about it in subcommittee, we thought, and we did talk to staff too, that there is a lot of pressure for, because of COVID and other things. At subcommittee, we thought if we gave staff up to 3% was reasonable, but it's just that it's only my opinion on that one.
Okay. Councillor Vasilakos.
I just sort of want to remind everyone that we've had the asset management plan presentation just recently. We've been talking about an infrastructure deficit the whole time that I've been on council. We had a levy at one point that seems to have fallen by the wayside that was supposed to help close that gap. And the longer that we don't give staff the flexibility on tax increases, small ones, over the next sort of decade or 15 years to close that infrastructure deficit, the more trouble we're just punting the problem of infrastructure deficit to certainly the people who will be owning my house in the future. And so I am very, very uncomfortable with looking at the increases in construction costs that we're seeing coming through, the inflation in the construction industry that I'm seeing, in addition to all our existing service levels, and then saying that somehow we're going to get it at 2% or 2.5%, while it would be, in an ideal world, really great if we weren't in this position. But I really feel uncomfortable punting it yet again. And for me, the really big part about it is the infrastructure deficit and the housing crisis that we seem to have. So I think we're going to have to just, the sooner we allow for a bit of an increase gradually over time, the easier it's going to be.
Thank you. Councillor Bunting.
Yes, I would throw in the fact that for the last 2 years, our income has been considerably reduced as well. So, I mean, I know Tom would like 1%, but he's got to be realistic as far as I'm concerned. And I think it's going to be closer to 3. And we'll be doing a good job if we get it at 3. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess Councillor Seven.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, I guess, a little more. I think if we have a range, we'll almost always end up on the higher end of it. And so I think it'd be better if we started lower. I know that we typically sort of reach somewhere. We start at a number, it goes up and down, and then by the time we have expansions and things like that, we end up sort of at the top of where we'd like or higher. And I think if we start with a lower position, then we'll be, if we say 2 to 3, we're likely to be presented with 3. If we say 2 to 2.5, we're more likely to start at a lower spot. And I think if we, I guess that's it. But I understand where the others are coming from.
Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, I just, I don't think I made myself clear. I believe if we can keep it close to under 3, it'll be a hard job for everyone on council. So I agree with Councillor Bunting, what he was saying. Like, we all like taxes, and it is an election here also, which could be on a few councillors' mind. It is not mine because I'm not running, but regardless, if we can keep it slightly under 3, I think we'll all have done a great job, quite frankly.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vasilakos.
And I'm just going to add that staff are always really good at coming to us with what's a reasonable budget. And even if that reasonable budget is a little higher than we want, it is our job as the elected officials on council to then make the difficult decisions about what service levels are, what will be added, what won't be, and where our priorities are. And so I think that if you ask staff to come back with something that's too low, you're only then going to have I think it'll always just creep back up again as soon as we start. So I would rather put the onus on us in looking at what staff bring us, and then the onus on us to have those difficult discussions rather than the other way around.
That's right. One of the things I think we have to remember moving forward here is even at 3%, there is quite the possibility that the staff will come to us in November and say, where do you want to start cutting programs and services? So, hopefully the reality is the 3% will carry us through, but there are these things are always possible. So if there's nothing further, the whole of item 7.2, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you for the wholesome discussion, everyone. Item 7.3, LAS Natural Gas Procurement Program, new agreement. And I see this is going to reconvene. Would anyone like to make the motion? Councillor Clifford and Councillor Deputy Mayor Ritzma. Any discussion? Does anybody need to make a presentation from staff, or is it self-explanatory? If there's no questions or discussions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. The next item is item 8, adjournment. Moved by Councillor Beatty, second by Councillor Burback. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Vasilakos.
Thank you, everyone. I will call the Infrastructure, Transportation and Safety Committee to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, there are the subcommittee minutes there for you to have reviewed. Item number 4 is delegations. There are none scheduled. And so then item number 5 is report of the Director of Infrastructure and Development Services. And item 5.1 was Guelph Street no parking review, and it was a bit of a housekeeping of the parking on Guelph Street. So there was a report there. Does anyone have any questions for the director on that report? Seeing none, we do have a subcommittee recommendation there, moved by Councillor Gaffney, seconded by Councillor Burback. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Thank you. So then item number 5.2 is the Stratford landfill public input, which was invited in June of 2021. There was a report that was circulated. Does anyone have any questions for the director on the report? Seeing none, so we do have a subcommittee recommendation. The council consider any comments received and that the report on the Stratford landfill public input June 2021 be received for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Ritzma, seconded by Councillor Burback. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. So next we have report of the item number 6, report of the manager of planning. And we have Durkin Street renaming request, and the report was included, and it was fairly straightforward on the request for the name change. Does anyone have any questions for the manager of planning? Seeing none there, then we do have a subcommittee recommendation that staff be authorized to give notice of intent to consider a bylaw change to the street name of Durkin Street to Wright Boulevard. Moved by Councillor Gaffney, seconded by Councillor Burback. All in favor? Do you have Councillor Gaffney, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make it clear to people watching that Chief Durkin's name is going to be added back onto the list of approved street names, so that hopefully in the not too distant future we find a place to rebrand a street with his name.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. And so item number 7 is report of the city clerk, and it's adoption of the City of Stratford's Facility Accessibility Design Manual 2021. Ms. Defoe, would you like to go over that just a little bit? I think there may be some interest in the public on this item just because it's quite extensive and does have impacts on cities, certainly city facilities, but also in discussions with builders and contractors.
Through the chair, certainly. So as outlined in the report, the city is looking to adopt a new facility accessibility design manual, and this new manual would replace standards that were adopted previously in 2004. As outlined, they are applicable to any city projects or facilities that are owned or leased by the city. It would apply to any new ones or new renovations going forward. However, we are going to be undertaking an education and kind of a training campaign for our local developers, and we're going to be encouraging the use of this manual for their project as well, because the standards do go beyond the Building Code Act, and we think it would be beneficial to see a lot of these standards implemented in other projects. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for Ms. Defoe? Councillor Henderson?
I know the Accessibility Committee would like to thank staff for all their hard work on this. I know there was a lot of back and forth on it, and we appreciate the accommodations and the changes they've made to help make our city more accessible and nice wider spaces for parking, etc. when you're getting in and out of your van or your vehicle that you need to use for your accommodation. And we appreciate all the work, and we hope that the local builders will take to heart the designs we have there, because the minimum standards are just that, minimum standards. You can always go better, and we certainly hope a lot of them will take that to heart when they're doing their building. We especially look at seeing at least 1 or 2 new homes in every development be accessible, so that, you know, they have a ramp going into their home, and maybe they have the development set up so that you can get into your basement from the garage. And it's developed totally accessible, your home, with the lower counters, etc. There is a need in our community, and unfortunately right now, most people that are looking for an accessible home either have to do it separately with the builder, or they have to go into an apartment building that's already developed accessible. And that's just not acceptable. We need to have buildings that people can buy and live in, and have accessible issues met for them. And not just that, maybe the person that bought that home doesn't have accessibility issues, but what about their family and friends? You know, there's a lot of people in our city that, or that come to visit our city, that have accessibility needs, and we need to be moving towards that. Thank you very much for all your work.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Any other comments or questions? If not, we do have the subcommittee recommendation that the City of Stratford Facility Accessibility Design Manual 2021 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Henderson, seconded by Councillor Burback. All in favor? Opposed, if any? And that's carried. So then item number 8 is for the information of the committee. It was a capital project update. And item number 9 is adjournment. Moved by Councillor Bunting, seconded by Councillor Clifford. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Vasilakos, and reconvene, Madam Clerk.
For you, Deputy Mayor Ritzma, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest made at standing committee to be restated at the reconvene portion?
Seeing none.
Item 15.2 is committee reports. And item 15.2.1 is from the Finance and Labor Relations Committee. And that was item 7.3, the LAS Natural Gas Procurement Program, new agreement.
And that's moved by Councillor Gaffney, seconded by Councillor Henderson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? And that's unanimous.
Item 15.3 is reading of the bylaws, and there are 2 bylaws listed for consideration as follows. Item 11.4 is the natural gas appointment and retainer agreement, and item 11.5 is the confirmatory bylaw. And these bylaws can be taken collectively upon unanimous vote of council present.
The mover for that, moved by Councillor Bunting, seconded by Councillor Vasilakos. All in favor? And that is unanimous. First and second, Councillor Clifford moving, Councillor Burback will second that. All in favor? And that's unanimous. And third and final, Councillor Gaffney and Councillor Beattie. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's unanimous. And the last item of the day is adjournment for council, from council. Councillor Vasilakos and Councillor Burback. All in favor? Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.